This is Andy Gutierrez from StarWars.com, and you are listening to Coffee with Kenobi with Dan Z. This is the podcast you're looking for.
This is Ashley Eckstein, Ahsoka Tano from Star Wars The Clone Wars and Star Wars Rebels, and you're listening to Coffee with Kenobi with Dan Z.
Joining us today for a cup of coffee to talk about the third episode in Season 2 of The Bad Batch, Disney Plus's amazing animated series focusing on Clone Force 99. This episode is called The Solitary Clone, and joining us are two of my favorite people. Now, they are not clones. They are interesting, charming people. Let's bring them in, both returning guests. First is Mr. Colby Mead of the Colby Cast.
Well, hello there. It's so nice to be back. I'm so excited to talk about The Bad Batch.
Yes, I'm excited to talk about The Bad Batch with you, buddy. But as promised, we're going to have a regular that's going to talk about Season 2 of The Bad Batch. He is my son, the one and only Mason Zehr. Mason, welcome back to the show.
Thank you. It's good to be back on.
Well, awesome. You know what? This is like, let me think about this. So he did the first one with me last week. You're on Steam into Star Wars, and now this. So are you trying to take over the show?
Maybe.
You couldn't hear, but he was rolling his eyes like, it's possible. All right. So the Bad Batch is awesome. We love the Bad Batch, but we're going to give one word to describe the solitary clone. This episode is very much focused on Crosshair and only Crosshair. And we're going to so give me one word to describe the episode and sort of your overall thoughts on the episode. And Mason, would you like to start?
Sure.
Okay, let's hear it, buddy.
I say exhilarating.
Okay.
Because all of the action in it and how Cody is sort of shaped into it. And how he's in that. And how they fight in like the new planet.
Right. So exhilarating is a great word. And the new planet we were just talking about, what is it called? It's like Deva.
No, it's
Dessin? Is it Dessin?
Tescan.
I think it's Dessin.
Desix.
Yes. Yes, Desix. Okay, very good. All right, well, thank you, Mason. Colby, what about you? One word and then overall thoughts.
So the only reason I knew Desix was because I wrote it down in my notes because I can never
Smart.
remember planet names. So my word, I would go with unexpected, because even though we sort of could conclude that it might be about Crosshair with the title of the episode, I sort of thought that it could also be talking about Cody, because these are two clones that are definitely solitary. So I just thought that the whole thing, and for reasons I'm sure we'll get into, was very unexpected. It was thought-provoking. I went on a rabbit trail, about an hours-long rabbit trail of Clone Wars episodes because of this episode, and I just really thoroughly enjoyed it.
So I'm glad, and I'm really not surprised at all. My word would be masterclass. I'm going to make that one word. It's a masterclass in storytelling as far as character. You say a lot with a little, with some stunning visuals and some excellent action sequences, as Mason mentioned. And it does make you, Colby, it makes you very hungry for the Clone Wars in general. So let's just dive in. It's a thrilling episode. At the end, we'll give our letter grades, although I have a theory that I know what we're going to say, although I could be proven wrong. Where do we want to start, gentlemen? As we've been doing, we're not going to necessarily start at the beginning and just go linearly from the beginning, middle to the end. We're just going to talk about things that jump out at us and what mean the most. Colby, anything on your mind you want to spring out right away?
Well, the first thing, and thanks for giving me a chance, I was looking forward to seeing what Mason was going to say. So I'll keep it short because I got to hear what you have to say, buddy. The thing that sort of sent me down my rabbit trail of Clone Wars storytelling was the character that we met, Tawny Ames, and the name that she dropped, which was Mina Bonteri, and the whole, really the lore that she brought into the Bad Batch from the Clone Wars. And they tried to make peace, right, during this time in the Clone Wars, during the Republic and the Separatist War. And I went back and watched those two episodes that Mina Bonteri was doing that. It was little to no action. talk about masterclass of storytelling. It was all about deregulation of banks and passing laws and funding wars. And I just thought it was so fascinating that they took the time to reference that in a very, very meaningful way.
Mm-hmm.
And that meant something when Cody was talking to her. It meant something when Crosshair was standing next to Cody. And just the way that they played it out in this episode just humanized Cody. It gave him an idea of, or gave us an idea of what a difficult position he's in.
Mm-hmm.
And then how everything went down, which I'm sure we can talk about in a little bit, but how everything went down afterwards was just so dramatic and heart-wrenching. And the way that they did it, just with that one word and that one character, I just thought was brilliant.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up. So you've done the research. What episode, what season of Clone Wars is it?
So that 2-episode arc is in season 3, and if I'm not mistaken, it's episode 10 and 11. So early on in the season.
Okay, excellent. Well, be sure to everyone to bookmark that in your Disney Plus. Look at that guy brandishing his logo. I love it. I love it.
It's a Christmas present, my coffee mug with the Colby Cast on it.
It's awesome. I love it. I love it.
Thank you.
Everyone should have one of those beauties. So yeah, I recognize the name, and I did not do the research on it. I certainly should have. So I'm grateful that you brought that up. That what they do here on this episode is they do a great job of, as I mentioned at the top of the show, making you feel like you are watching a detailed episode of the Clone Wars. And Mason, I think you'll probably agree with me on this. Now, I know you've seen a good chunk of Clone Wars, but there's still some that you haven't seen. And there are so many, and some came out so long ago that some are like distant memories to me as well. But I know how much you like battle droids. So tell me kind of, what were some of your favorite parts about seeing the battle droids back in action?
I think it was cool how they brought in, like, how they were reprogrammed, even though they got the shutdown order, and how they fought. They, like, didn't act like battle droids. They acted like not battle droids.
Yeah, so there's a specific scene that we just watched it again before this recording, and something happens, and Mason said, "I don't think battle droids would act like that," and I said, "Yeah, they would." And then we said, "Wait, let's talk about it on the show." Yeah, talk about that.
It was like when they were shooting down the ship that the clones were coming on, and with the big tank, they shot them down. The other battle droid said, "Nice shot," and high-fived the other one.
Now, you don't think battle droids would act like that? Why not?
Because they're not really celebratory. They're just
Good word.
Fighting in the action, and they just obey orders, and they don't really have a brain.
Okay.
They don't.
Well, no, you're right. They're very much they're very hive-minded and by the book, but they sometimes say funny, snarky things. But would they high five? Have we ever seen them high five before? Both of you are shaking your heads.
I don't think so.
I don't remember. It wouldn't surprise me, but it also would. So you bring up an interesting point, Mace, and that is, battle droids aren't necessarily smart. They're just programmed. They fire, they march. They have that wonderful clanking noise, which is why everyone calls them clankers if you are a clone. But it seems like maybe they were reprogrammed to work with this, her name is escaping me. You mentioned earlier, Colby.
Commander Colby.
Commander Colby. Yo, there you go.
Tawny Ames.
Tawny Ames. Yes. So were they reprogrammed by Tawny Ames, or maybe she's part of the separatist movement? It says that she's an independent.
Well, one of my observations, and I was thrilled to see the battle droids, Mason, just like you, they crack me up. They always crack me up. Yes. And one of the things, this episode does it twice, where it immediately answers a question that it knows all Star Wars fans are going to have. And the point I'm going to bring up now is for the battle droids. It makes a point of saying, oh, but they can be reprogrammed. Didn't they receive the shutdown order? I think one of the clones says on the ship on the way in, and then and Crosshair is the one that comes up with, well, they could be reprogrammed. So I just thought that was such a smart little nuanced detail of the episode. And they certainly were reprogrammed, and they were pretty sassy because one of them, I can't even remember at what point it was, he just in his battle droid voice says, mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah.
Just cracked me up.
Do you remember what led to that, Mason? You did.
Yeah.
We were talking about that too.
Mm-hmm. It's the commander that they captured. He says, they say like, we're gonna keep you here or something like that, and then he says, I am the governor of Banna. I forget the
Essex.
Yeah.
Essex. Yeah.
Essex.
Essex. And then the battle droid says, mm-hmm. And like looks him in the eye, like.
Right. Yeah. With their little noise. There's nothing better than Star Wars sound effects. And I feel like the Phantom Menace has aged so well, which, you know, back when it came out, not everyone would have necessarily agreed with me if I told them that was how it was going to be. But when you see those tanks coming out and the battle droids are marching, and even some of the sequences kind of feel like they're on Naboo, even though they clearly aren't, they're on Desix. It just it's kind of a great nostalgic, welcoming thing. And then you shift from something that isn't nostalgic to something that's very cold and lonely and isolated, and that's Crosshair. Now, we haven't seen Crosshair. It's only been 2 episodes in season 2. And this is the 3rd one. This is the first time we've seen him. There's no one else from the Bad Batch. Is there? No Hunter, no Tech, no Echo. None of them are there. And when we first see him, you know, Mason commented to me that bed doesn't look very comfortable. Now, Crosshair, how would you? I mean, you mentioned, Colby, that this could be the Saltray clone could very well be Commander Cody, but it's also very clearly Crosshair.
Yeah.
How do you both sort of interpret Crosshair through? Not at the end. The end is a whole separate thing with the murder that he commits. But how do you interpret Crosshair, and why is he still here? What is keeping him motivated?
I don't know what is motivating him, except beyond the fact that he keeps on using the phrase or the word soldier. And I guess he's got to be so in his own mind and in his own miserable existence, because right now what he's living is a miserable existence.
Yes.
He must be just hanging on to that comfort of being a soldier for so long through his whole existence, right? Who knows how long he's been alive, but his whole existence has been for one thing, and that's following orders and doing what he's told. And for, you know, many people, that can be a comforting thing. And the fear of the unknown, the fear of doing what his brother and his little sister Omega are doing, which is branch out and living an independent life, I would imagine must be very scary for him. So his comfort zone, his safe place for himself, is being a soldier and just being told what to do and doing what he does best, which unfortunately for people around him is shooting things very accurately. Very accurately.
What about you, Mason? Why do you think? Because I thought he says at the end of season 1 that he doesn't have the chip. Like, the chip is gone. That would have made him obey Order 66. So why do you think Crosshair acts like this?
I agree with Colby. I think either he still has the chip in, like he secretly didn't take it out, or he just thinks good soldiers follow orders, so he follows orders, and he doesn't know any better.
Right. And that's the challenge, isn't it? So here's the deal. If he still has that chip in, then there's nothing really to discuss, because we know, we get it. We've seen it in action several times. But if he does, in fact, not have the chip, and he's continuing to make bad choices, continuing to commit atrocities because he's just because good soldiers follow orders, then he's just a bad guy, a really bad guy. And you don't want that to be the case, because you know he has a bond with his brothers, you know, with Wrecker and everybody. Like, you know that he's got that connection, or he used to for a while. We saw tension with them in the end of Clone Wars, when the Bad Batch was introduced, but you just kind of get the feeling that Crosshair's just a cantankerous guy, but ultimately he's got your back. I mean, Crosshair is definitely fiercely loyal to a massive fault, But then we meet another clone, and there's a great reveal where he takes off his helmet as Commander Cody. And Mason, is he your favorite Star Wars character or one of your favorites?
Second favorite.
Second favorite. So what did you think when you saw him?
I was surprised and I wasn't surprised. But I mostly was because I would think he would be like Rex and run away. But it makes sense that he stayed with the Empire.
Why do you think he did?
So, like, if he did run away and if they found him,
it'd be bad.
Yeah.
It'd be really bad. I think Cody is an important part of this piece because Cody, we don't really see what happened with him in Order 66, do we? Is my memory completely gone?
Just the short scene where he picks up Obi-Wan's lightsaber on Utapau, and then he's the one that gets the order, and then he makes them turn their guns on Obi-Wan, who's trying to, who's flying up. And then that's it.
And that's it. But the way he's behaving here, the whole chip thing is becoming very murky because it doesn't seem that he has a chip in, or maybe his is deactivated or is not functioning properly, because he appears to be able to think a little bit for himself. He even mocks the term, good soldiers follow orders, huh? And he walks off. Crosshair just has this puzzling look. Crosshair is in an isolated bunk, but it looks more like a cell. But it's one really of his own design. He goes out to sit with other clones. As soon as he sits there, they all get up and leave him. It's like he's the outcast. Doesn't seem to bother him. In fact, you probably get the sense that he knows when he sits down, people are going to move, but he just doesn't seem to have empathy. Empathy is, of course, that emotion, or that the ability to feel what other people feel, to have sympathy, to care about other people. He doesn't seem to have that, but he also, I don't know. How do you think he feels about Rampart? Colby, how do you think he feels about Rampart? And I want to see what you think too, Mace.
I think he would like it if Rampart stopped interrupting his breakfasts. 2 times the poor guy sits down to have his little stale bread and then CT 9904, please report. And there he goes. But, I think at this point, Crosshair wants Rampart to give him the trust that he used to have that he no longer has. He wants to, you said it, he's loyal to a fault, and he wants to do work. He wants to do that soldier work for the Empire. So I can't imagine he is afraid of anybody, to be quite honest. So I don't think he fears Rampart, but I do think he wants to gain that trust back, and he wants Rampart to give him a command. That was the first thing he said to him, right? Was, who are my troops or something like that. And he said, oh, no, you're not in command. You're going to be reporting to Commander Cody. And another thing is that he doesn't use the clones' names, Rampart, right? He's using them as their identification numbers,
right?
Which is just another dehumanizing aspect of this whole thing, which is so sad. But yeah, I think he has a certain level of respect for Rampart because he wants to go do what he's good at, and Rampart is the one that's going to enable him to do that at this point.
I like it. Mason, what do you think?
I think he thinks of Rampart. He's mad at him that he's not giving him command. I think. Yeah,
true.
Like Colby said, he wants more breakfast. His stomach is grumbling. And
he's already grumpy as it is. Imagine being hangry.
Yeah.
Oh.
He just makes him sort of more lethal, it feels like.
Oh, I like that. Well, your vocabulary is outstanding, sir.
And he left him on that dang planet for 32 rotations. How do you think he's going to feel after that?
Exactly. That's a lot. That's a lot of fish to eat. I'm assuming there were fish on Camino.
A lot of sushi.
Yeah.
And a lot of water to drink.
That's true. Probably is full of salt. Probably not good. Probably is bad for your complexion. All right. So the challenge here is that I feel like he is following protocol. He even stands with his posture back, his chest up, his arms backwards, his elbows out almost akimbo. And he's very much like a good soldier, in his behavior and his mannerisms, respecting a superior. And Rampart is very sort of, I won't say snarky, but he's very cavalier and dismissive, even though with his British accent, he sounds more sophisticated than he probably is. And then he's even, and Crosshair's even standing there awkwardly before he is dismissed. It seems to me that Crosshair is emotionally stilted and that he's still living in an era where life is simple. You get missions, you do your job, you help out your brothers, and you go home and you sleep on your hard, crusty bunk. Like, that's where I think he is at. And the lessons that he learned from Clone Force 99 on Kamino, when he saw them destroying his home, if it bothers him, I feel like it's got to bother him because you get a sense he doesn't get a ton of sleep. Like, and it's not like he's a processor of his feelings. But we don't even get much time for that. He goes and he's reunited with Cody, as we said. The good soldiers follow orders joke, and they land. There's all these great action sequences. Let's just talk about particular action sequences. There are two. Well, there are several maneuvers that really stand out. Mason, I'll let you take it over from here. Tell me about the action that you liked.
I liked how when they faced the droidicas, I liked how they handled that. And when Cody says, where do you need me to throw it? And Crosshair says, as far as you can. And he bounces it off the mirror thing and then off a battle droid, off another battle droid, onto the another mirror thing and hits the droid in the eye.
It's an epic sequence. Yeah. It's a top tier Star Wars action sequence. There aren't a lot of people in the galaxy that could make that shot. He always makes it look easy, but what I like about that whole fight though is that he has to use Cody. In fact, Cody saves his life. Cody has his knife out, which is always kind of cool when they use the knives, fighting technology, fighting an armored being, and seeing that action sequence happen, and the fact that Crosshair wouldn't be around if Cody didn't save him is important. So is Cody going to remember that? I mean, he does save the Bad Batch in Omega at the end of season 1, and then he says, well, we're even. He's a scorekeeper, which is no surprise. But it's a spectacular sequence.
This was like an all-star lineup of battle droids, right? Mm-hmm. We had the only ones that we missed, really, I think, were well, there's so many, but the main ones was the super battle droid. We didn't get any of those, and I was just waiting for one of them or a couple of them to start coming out. But there were so many cool ones. The sequence that stood out to me that I really enjoyed was sort of subtle, and it was early on when he had to take out that tank, and he just starts shooting it, seemingly missing anything important. But we know Crosshair doesn't miss, so he's just forcing them to readjust and readjust and readjust so that he can put a blaster bolt right down that cannon and just take it out completely. He has such a disdain for the clones, or for the battle droids too, doesn't he? He calls them clankers, of course, which was fun. Yeah. And then he said the only weakness, something to do with the only weakness on those tanks are the droids operating them.
Yes.
So I just thought it was really, really cool the way he forced them to readjust and put the cannon right in a position that he wanted. He was just playing them from who knows how far away. Really cool stuff.
It reminds me when I play Mason in Battlefront 2 on the PS4, and he always destroys me, and I always think I'm being so clever, and then he has some tricky shot or uses some special ability, and I never have a chance. I'm glad Crosshair isn't in that game, Mason, because I would never have a chance. Even worse than I usually do.
Maybe, yeah.
So the other crux, the emotional beat of this, comes at the end. You have to give me the name again. I don't know how. I don't know.
Oh, Tawny Ames.
Yes, thank you, Colby.
Doesn't necessarily roll off the tongue, does it?
No, Tawny just sounds like the actor or the woman that's in the White Snake video. Tawny
Catania.
They're very different.
80s rock.
Yes, very different. But she has this impassioned plea, and her whole stance the entire time is that this Imperial officer is kidnapped because he's a coward. Right? I think they make it very clear. He's only tough and smug when he's got a bunch of soldiers with him. He wants to boss Tawny around and basically say, yeah, you made a plea to be independent, but that was denied. The Emperor basically, we know how this works. The Emperor doesn't care about what you think. You are a resource. He's the ultimate parasite sucking the galaxy dry over a very long period of time. A mosquito, if you will. And his pleas Tawny's pleas are irrelevant. So then the whole purpose of this mission is to pretend like we want to actually negotiate, but do whatever is necessary. Now, Cody appears willing to negotiate. He takes off his helmet, making that, when you got your helmet on, you can do whatever, but it puts the human element into it. And he's, we've both seen enough war, and let's find a way to talk about this. I don't have the exact words, of course. And there's this beautiful music, and then boom, there's the shot. You can see Tawny's reaction, and Crosshair shoots her, looks, and then he just kind of, I think, does he put on his helmet and walk away? Or he has his helmet.
He already had his helmet.
He already has his helmet. Yeah, thank you. So let's talk about this scene, Mason. What did you think about that? What's going on here?
I think, like how we said earlier about how Crosshair acts, he either followed the orders of the commander, Admiral, not Rampart, but it was.
Sure, I know exactly what you mean. He says, he says execute her. He doesn't say shoot her, arrest her, stop her. He says execute, like murder.
Mm-hmm. So I think he was trying to follow orders, but Cody thought about it, and he's like, no, I'm not going to. And then he thought Crosshair was going to not do it too, but he did.
Yeah. Did it bother Crosshair?
That's the question.
Mm-hmm.
You say yes, Mason? Tell me why.
Yes. Because when Cody says the difference between us and battle droids is, he said something like, we make our own decisions and we
have to live with them.
Yeah, we have to live with them. And Crosshair, and Cody walked off, and Crosshair sort of like sat there for a long time, which probably felt like hours to him. And then when he got up the next morning, he still had that look on his face.
That's pretty insightful. I agree with you. Like, you can tell, like, it does in the way that they show him, like he's rubbing his eyes, like things are getting to him, but I mean, how much grace can we extend to this guy? I mean, we know redemption is a key moment in life, in Christianity. In Star Wars, redemption is a massive thing. I feel like the lens of credulity was strained with Kylo Ren being redeemed because we didn't get enough payoff there. But that's a whole other conversation that I've had many times, both on and off the air. But so in this, when it comes down to it, is Crosshair going to be able to live with himself? Are his crimes going to be able to be forgiven? I don't know. We don't really have enough to answer that yet. But it's sort of hard, as we said at the beginning, because you want to like him, but why do we like him? Because he sounds cool, because he's a great crack shot, because he's fiercely determined, and he follows things through regardless. To me, that's dangerous. That's if like Cody says, the difference between us and battle droids is we can think for ourselves, right? And is Crosshair thinking for himself? That's really the $1 million question here.
And it's interesting you brought up, do we like him, or how do we like him? Why do we like him? I'm not sure I do, but I find him to be a sympathetic character. I have sympathy for him.
Yes.
Because he's only doing what he has been created to do. And he hasn't reached a point where his brothers have, and in that episode we saw from season 1 where they actually had their chips removed, that helped greatly. But they all did show a certain amount of restraint against the inhibitor chip even before it was removed. And Crosshair didn't. So he's been trained to do this. He's doing what he feels he's a predator. Yep. He was trained to be a predator, and he is being a predator. And I think it is wearing on him. It's clear when they showed the two scenes in his, like you said, it was like a cell. He's not even asleep when that alarm goes off. He's already awake. He even gets up the second time. He gets up just a few seconds before the alarm goes off. And I don't know that it bothered him in the moment that he shot and killed that character. I definitely agree with both of you that it bothered him later, because in the moment he's just being that predator. He's following that order. And then after the fact, when he has time to process it and he has nobody else to go after, when he's alone, when he's by himself, when Cody leaves him, that's when the heaviness probably starts to come in. And I love a redemption story too, Dan. It's I just love it. If we're willing to forgive Darth Vader, though, I think we can forgive Crosshair.
This is Vanessa Marshall, and you're listening to Coffee with Kenobi.
Here's the challenge. Darth Vader in 1983, when it was revealed who he was, again, it's not everyone. I don't know. I mean, I was 10, 11 years old, 9 years old. And we knew that he was a bad guy. We knew what he did to Han Solo, freezing him in carbonite. We knew all this stuff. We didn't see any of the stuff. You heard rumors and there's stuff in comics and this and that. But, we didn't have all the comics and Rebels and Rogue One and Obi-Wan Kenobi and all the things that Darth Vader's actually done. We've seen what Crosshair has done. Early on in season 1, he kills these people that are defenseless and weaponless, who are just trying to escape. And then he does this. So it's just such a wonderful paradox. Two existing things happening at the same time both seem to be true. This is the episode I've liked the most of anything I've ever seen of Crosshair. But it's still, when you see him murder this woman who's just fighting for her people and her independence, it just, you're like, no, it's hard. And I like that it's challenging. Mason, what do you think? But I saw you shaking your head.
Is
there any, you want to talk about that, or is there anything else you want to talk about from the episode?
The Droidicus.
Oh, yeah. What would you like to say about the Droidicus?
Like how they fought them.
Oh, yeah. There's a really cool way that they ended up destroying them. And it happened so quickly that you had to explain it to me. Tell me what happened.
They threw a bomb on the battle droid's shoulder. Mm-hmm. And then they shot the battle droid, and he fell into the Droideka shield.
Oh, yes.
And then it exploded with the Droideka.
And you thought, because I said to you, they seem so impossible to defeat in these things, but yet in Battlefront, every time I use them, I'm terrible. Why is that, Mason? Help me with that.
In Battlefront, they have like a limited shield, but like when you're watching stuff like this, it's unlimited.
True, that's true.
Can I tell you that when at first I think droidekas are so cool, the design and the whole self-generated shield, and they're really formidable, right, for anybody that comes up against them. And there was a quick scene that made me think back to another Clone Wars episode or story arc where one of the clone troopers tried to roll a popper, right? They called him a popper. Tried to throw one of those things or roll it under his shield, like Anakin and Obi-Wan were training Saw Gerrera and his sister how to do, right? And was that planet Onderon? I think
it was Onderon. Yep.
So I just that arc always sticks out to me because it's so interesting. They're rolling. Oh no, you got to do it a little bit slower. No, you got to do it this way. And clearly, they either had upgraded shields or that clone trooper didn't have the wrist action to roll it the way he should have, because that just popped right off and just blew up.
It's so good. All right. Well, I mean, there's nothing really I can think of to talk about. At the end, we find out that Cody is AO, absent without leave. AOL. No, that's an old AWOL. Yeah. AOL is an old email situation. So yeah, and a web browser, easy for me to say. But I'm ready to give my letter grade. What about the two of you? You ready to give your letter grade? Okay, Mason, why don't you kick it off for us?
An A.5.
A plus? What's an A.5? Tell me about
like
that.
Halfway from an A to an A plus.
Oh, okay. And want to give a reason why, though? I think you pretty much explained it pretty well.
Like how I said in the beginning, the action, how the story is told.
So good. Yeah, well, that's awesome. I had a feeling you were going to give it an A, but so basically a super, super high A right before A+. Is that fair? Excellent. I like that very much. Colby?
I'm just going to look over my shoulder and cheat off of Mason's paper and just say the same thing. The exact, because I had it the same. I was gonna call it a solid A, but I like the way Mason did it better because it's a little bit more powerful than a solid A.
Agreed.
I just loved the thought provocation, right? And just the whenever I watch something that sort of just opens up your mind and makes you think about other things that they have referenced, which this one did, it just is so much fun to me. And then it stayed with me pretty much all day. I found myself just sort of reflecting back, and then other reasons too, which are the case in every episode, which the beauty of the animation, the sounds. This show just does it all so well. So yeah, it was a real thrill. I'm so glad I was able to come on and talk to you guys about it. It was very exciting.
Yeah, it's great. Well, this not only is this an A, but this is an A+ for me. This is top tier Star Wars. It's got action. It's got thought-provoking character stuff. The plot advances beautifully. There's a stunning ending that kind of knocks the wind out of you, but makes you think. You've got some unresolved things. The sound, the visuals, all stunning. This is one of the best episodes of not only The Bad Batch, but one of the best episodes of Star Wars animation I've ever seen. I think this is one of the new gold standards for Star Wars animation. I absolutely loved it.
I'm right there with you, and I just love how much this series truly is a continuation of the Clone Wars. It's just progressing down that timeline, but it still bridges the prequels and the originals, right? So we're marching towards the Andor time frame. We're very, very early on still, but this episode is a perfect example of that, with the battle droids, with the Clone Wars roots, with the name dropping. And I just think that's one of the things that makes this series so much fun to me, is how I feel like we're watching Clone Wars again. And I love that series.
Same here. Well, Colby and Mason, thank you so much for joining me to talk about the solitary clone. The Bad Batch continues to deliver. And I'm very glad I can talk about it with the two of you. So, Colby, first of all, congratulations. You got a year of the Colby Cast under your belt, right?
It's getting close. Yeah, end of March is when we kicked it off. So we're staring down the barrel of a year.
I knew you were close. I loved your look back on 2022 with Tom Gross. You two were two of my favorites. So it was really fun to hear you both talk and reminisce. Please let everybody know where they can find not only you, but the Colby Cast.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you again, both of you, Zehr boys, for having me on. It was an absolute pleasure. Always love talking to you guys. The Colby Cast is on Twitter, Instagram, as well as Hive. I've opened up a Hive account there too, so you can find everywhere it's at the Colby Cast, spelled out like my name, the Colby Cast. And if you want to shoot me a message directly, I'm cross-checked 3. That hockey term, number 3 in Twitter and Instagram.
Excellent. And Mason can occasionally be found on CWK Live and on Coffee with Kenobi. Mason, thanks again for coming back on, buddy.
Welcome. It was a pleasure.
Love it. Well, thank you all so much for listening in. If you, after you've seen the episode, please write down your top 5 so that next Tuesday night at 7:00 p.m. Central Standard Time, you can join me and a bevy of our friends at our local coffee house virtually, and give our top 5 things that we love about Star Wars: The Bad Batch, The Solitary Clone. On behalf of myself, Colby Mead, and Mason Zehr, we will see you next time.
This podcast is not endorsed by the Walt Disney Company or Lucasfilm Limited. It is intended for entertainment and informational purposes only. The official Star Wars website can be found at www.starwars.com. Star Wars, all names, sounds, and any other Star Wars related items are registered trademarks and or copyrights of Disney and their respective trademark and copyright holders. All original content of this podcast is the intellectual property of Coffee with Kenobi unless otherwise indicated.
This is the podcast you're looking for.